Littering and garbage are not uncommon issues in urban environments like cities, but it arguably impacts low income communities more. These issues could be linked to racism, wealth, and inequality.
Do you think there's a big difference in the amount of garbage between high income and low income communities in New York City? Do you
Yes,
think do you think it's a racial or economical or both?
that
Economical.
that's a great question. It's really hard to separate those things in our society because they're so tied up. I think it's primarily one of the main causes. I think is there is a lack of financial investment in taking care of the parks in certain neighborhoods. And now,
Okay.
why is that lack of investment there? Part of it is because the communities are not wealthy, but part of it, I think, there is definitely an element of racism to it, and so it fits into the larger environmental justice conversation.
Yeah.
Um, and then I think, to be honest, another way of thinking about it is also cultural. Um, it's not necessarily all economic or all racial, in my view. It's also, in terms of the culture of a given community, what are our expectations for our places? You might have a lot of people who come from rural communities where they don't worry so much about litter.
Looking at these images show evidence that people of color don't merely create waste and garbage. These images show that the waste transfer is not handled correctly as the rest of New York City compared to low income communities. A quote from Con Science states: "The attitude towards littering of our society plays an important role in the process of littering. Studies found that people are more likely to litter in areas where there is already a high level of littering. This implies that people are also forced by social norms. In areas with high levels of littering, people think it is more accepted to litter and therefore are more eager to do so. Thus, the value system of our society also determines the level of littering." Do you believe that citizens in Washington Heights are responsible for the garbage and littering that comes about?
I do believe that they are actually responsible because they are the only ones that walk around this neighborhood, and um, they're also the only ones that throw out the garbage into the floor instead of the garbage can.
A lot of trash. It's a lot of trash.
The environmental impact of the pandemic can be seen on New York City streets, on street corners, sidewalks, and even along curbs. Everything from trash bags to days-old debris to masks and gloves. It's piling up and becoming an eyesore in many neighborhoods, including several in Queens.
It's disgusting. There's trash everywhere.
Well, nobody's cleaning up after they take the trash, so the smell remains.
The commissioner of the City of New York's sanitation department talking to Pix 11, saying there has been more trash to pick up because more people are working from home, and cleaning up all of the waste and litter on the streets has been a challenge with all of the recent budget cuts.
We are producing more waste and more recycling than we did prior to the pandemic. The challenge we're going to have going forward is not only the pandemic, but also the fiscal crisis in the city of New York, for us to be able to continue to provide the services that New Yorkers have come to expect.
Our path to have better streets is to start with change. Today, low income areas deal with the effects of environmental racism, leaving our communities to struggle. It's best for us as a community to educate and bring voices to impact more communities, even though most of the waste from our communities isn't our fault. As citizens, we need to start changing how we see and do. Furthermore, with the current events of face masks being littered, we as a community could change to keep this from still happening, and in general, stopping littering. Overall, we need to evaluate the voices of impact communities and self-educate racism and hold our representatives accountable.